In my humble opinion, Zen is a masterclass on setting boundaries. When this song came out, it stood out to me the most. In fact, I think it really stood out to everybody because I remember everyone just being stunned by the visuals of the music video and the outfits that Jennie was wearing and just the absolute beauty that went behind the production and the music video. It was just an amazing experience. It really showed how much visuals and visual art can really invoke and maybe even enrichen the message of the song. And I really think that Zen just showed how much power the lyrics really had. And I think it really goes to show how important visual storytelling is in music and film. And if it's not done right, you might not be able to make the writing of your song or your movie stand out and actually impact the audience. So that being said, I feel like there's a lot of introspective songs on this album, but I do feel like people would not include this song on the album. They wouldn't include this song on that list. But, I think this song is quite introspective, but I do feel like it approaches introspection in a different route. Rather than getting in touch with their feelings, the narrator aims to set boundaries while providing enough communication to the listener to have a general understanding of why the narrator is doing what they're doing. Because I've noticed that in the song, the narrator knows and they're telling you basically what they feel, but they do make sure that they're not giving it all away, and they tell you in a way that you know what's happening, but at the same time they're respecting their own boundaries and also achieving the goal of the lyrics, which is to set boundaries. You'll notice that Jennie's voice has a very striking confidence to it, and this album explores a lot of her softer tones, but this song features her signature confident tone that has this effortless power to it that, in my opinion, cannot be copied. And Jennie uses her voice to set the direction and the tone for this song. It's firm and it's strong, and I saw someone say that there was anger to it, and I completely agree with that idea. But I want to take it a step further and say that I feel like the anger was tightly held on by a leash, and the narrator was in full control of how they directed that anger, because even though Jennie had this very strong and striking confidence, there was nothing too loud about how she was presenting the song. She kept it in control, and she kept the anger in line. Like, she was in control of the anger. This song is introspective, but not in a traditional way. A few examples I could probably give to you is Cover Me by Stray Kids and High Horse by NMIX, for example. I feel like those are two good introspective songs. That being said, I think, to me, Jennie's Zen is like chicken noodle soup. Hold on, hear me out, okay? Let me cook. I think it has all the core ingredients to be a proper soup dish, but it lacks the complexity that dishes like French onion soup might hold. And I use this dish, for example, as an analogy for what a traditional introspective song looks like or sounds like, where emotions are completely laid onto the table. And I'm not saying Jennie does not lean into traditional aspects of introspection, because we see those introspections happen in full force in other songs, for example, like Twin. And she tells us everything she feels in that song. But however, there is restraint and there's power that comes from Zen that other songs, like Twin, do not have. Chicken soup is a very simple dish in its nature. Its objective goal at times is to heal sickness. It is light and it is flavorful to not upset the stomach of someone who might consume it. It doesn't cross that boundary. The same could be said about Zen, because it has all the core elements and establishes the narrator's thoughts. However, what makes them so simple in nature is that Jennie presents a point where she says or that she needs to say something, and she does not elaborate any further because it doesn't need to be discussed any further. We already know enough to understand what's going on and what the narrator wants to get across. In a traditional introspective song, there's various elements that enrichen the language that goes into writing a traditional song, and it usually goes and leads into artful imagery. That leads to more flavors coming through, and it can be very beautiful, and it is beautiful. However, sometimes having language that is as complex as a French onion soup can lead to various interpretations that might not have been intended. There is an importance to having an interpretation to art, and there's beauty in that. But what if the intention of the artist was to never create any other interpretation? That is why sometimes direct simplicity is so important to have. And that's why the role that chicken soup plays is so important. And that is what Zen is to its listeners. Simple, direct soup that allows for a hearty message without overcomplicating the palate to create interpretations that might mess up the whole meal. Now, you might say, hey, Run for Roses, that's all cool, but isn't the idea that Jennie is talking about boundaries and interpretation? And I would argue, yes, dear listener, probably. However, we're all having fun here, and none of this is serious. So that being said, if this throws my entire analysis out the window, I guess so be it. So, yeah. Okay, as a way to start talking about the first verse, I want to actually read what the first verse actually is. So, follow along. I'll put the lyrics up here if you don't want to look up the lyrics, which is completely fine. You're here to enjoy this video. You're not here for me to lecture you. Anyway, I tell them down now. On the energy, yes, I am what you think about me. Cross me, please. I'ma keep the Z. Zen, present, bless, money can't buy 6 cents. From the get-go, this song tells you that this is going to be assertive, and that's the entire energy through the entire song. And from the jump, the narrator tells the listener to stop whatever they're doing and to step down. The narrator is reaffirming this and that they are going to speak to the listener in this tone and to kind of like tell the narrator, not the narrator, but the audience to kind of turn back around with the same energy that they came with at the narrator. The narrator seems to understand that people will continuously talk about them and they will keep doing so. But it feels like they truly don't care anymore. And I feel like they kind of own the identity and they kind of are okay with being kind of this narrative among people, even if the narratives are kind of negative, because I feel like the narrator has come to accept that they cannot stop people from having their little gossip sessions. And I guess a second line that really resonates with me is money can't buy success. It's the idea that just because you have wealth, it doesn't mean that you have intelligence, because as we know, wealth and intelligence does not correlate. And I feel like this is like cold hard truths that they've had to learn over time through reflection and like experiencing life. And I feel like they're just kind of like presenting what they've learned on a platter for us. And it's not meant to be analyzed or written or read in between the lines, because it's just very direct, but rather just, I feel like it's so direct that it's just like a cold hard truth that they have learned, and they hope that we learn as well. And we can use this as a reflection to reflect and how potentially these lyrics could affect us. So, moving on to the pre-chorus, it reads that bad B, queso make me better, fire aura quiets chatter, shoo, I make them scatter, they can't move my matter. So the pre-chorus seems to establish that people want to change the narrator's character, and the presence that they currently hold kind of like silences the room, and they know that their presence is controversial, but they won't change, even if it's the smallest of particles of matter. So the chorus reads, nobody is going to move my soul, my aura, my matter. They're not going to touch my light. They're not going to touch my glow, my matter, and nobody's going to have all this power, make them scatter. Nobody's going to touch my skull, my soul, my skull, my soul, match my glow, like I dare you. Again, this chorus reaffirms that no one can change the narrator's identity in any aspect, whether that be their soul, their aura, their light, even their glow. And you'll notice that the chorus sounds like affirmations, almost as if they're using this to affirm their identity that cannot be changed by others or forced to be changed by the people around them. And I don't know if this is going to be vague, but in the Like Jennie video, we do notice that Jennie is meditating. And again, maybe the narrator is just saying these affirmations as a way to also meditate. When they also meditate, I don't know. But I felt like maybe there could be a connection. But again, I'm probably just yapping. Anyway. And it seems that the narrator knows their impact on people, even if they don't change their identity for others. They know that they have this aura that creates change. And this isn't meant to be unrealistic, because all of us have identities and personalities that are different from each other. But I do feel like all of us together create this humanness around the world. And I feel like once you enter a room or walk down a sidewalk, that presence of that sidewalk or that room changes, because you have small impacts wherever you go, and no one has the power to change you. You have the ability to create change yourself. And again, I do feel like all of us create and make a room a lot more brighter, and we have that power within us, because we all have something that makes us unique. So that being said, the last line of the chorus, I dare you, I think after a period where you have reflected on your identity and you know who you are, I think it's fair and it would make sense if you become confident and ensured with how you are and how you present in the world. Right? And again, I do want to reaffirm and say that when I'm talking about people not changing for others, I mean people like Like, not changing, like, if you wear hot pink pants everywhere you go, and people tell you it's cringe, but you don't do that because you like it, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, like, if you are, like, a genuinely, like, doing, like, you're doing bad things. No, I'm just talking about, like, not toning down parts of your identity that do not harm anybody, and in fact actually make the world a better place. So yeah, I feel like I had to put that disclaimer out there. So yeah, what was I saying? I feel like I lost my place in the script. Okay, let me take a pause and let me find it. Okay, so again, back to the last line. The idea of someone daring you to you're like daring them to like try and shake you from who you are, and you're not, because you've been through all this introspection, you've been through all this reflection, and it's almost like a game, right? Like, you dare them to do something that will be impossible for them to do. And it almost comes to a point where you feel like you're so sound with your identity that someone toying with who you are is like a game of truth and dare. And you must dare the person to change your identity, because a lot of people tend to think that they're in control of other people's identities, and being so confident in who you are is the biggest threat to so many people. And putting that boundary up of confidence keeps the narrator on a higher playing field. So I want to talk about the second verse, and I'm going to read it right now. Thick-skinned layered, like chains on chains on chains, where the pressure on my neck and rings, rain, midnight bloom, in the dark eye grew. It feels like the struggles that life has given them, them being the narrator, has given them thicker skin. Like, thick as in layered chains on top of one another. And it just shows how much the narrator had to grow from that. And it shows that because of the layered chains that represent their skin, it also could represent the pressure that was weighing on their neck at a very sensitive time, and especially with the neck being a sensitive part of the body, it shows that, like, they had a lot of pressure on them. And now, instead of it being like a literal chain that is used to kind of arrest you or hold you down, it's now like a piece of jewelry that they wear as an aesthetic. And the narrator does lightly mention that their time with reflection came through phases of darkness, and when they reflected in those moments of darkness, they grew. And I think that's very, very, very interesting. And that being said, I'm also skipping parts of the song because, again, it's the same, and I don't think I could add more to it, because I think it was just the chorus after that. That being said, the bridge is interesting because I feel like there's a lot of repetition, and I feel like it's just a vibe, right? There's not a lot of words in the bridge. I feel like it's very atmospheric, and you're just taking in the production, and you're just watching, and you're just listening to the beauty of the production and the visuals of the music video. But I do think the narrator saying "shoo" multiple times could just mean that they're telling someone to just go away, telling that person who is violating their boundaries to just leave. And again, I feel like some people do that as a way to maintain, and as an act to protect themselves and the people they care about, right? And there is this important statement at the end of the bridge that says, money can't buy real friends. And I think this applies to different people in different ways, whether that can be wealthy people who might not gain genuine friendships because people want to take advantage of their wealth, or someone who simply buys gifts for their friends because that's how they genuinely show love. And even if they do spend an amount of money to show that appreciation, it sometimes doesn't work. And I think there's many interpretations to this line, and I guess it applies differently to how different people experience life. And I think the last line, can't be two of one, is so interesting because when I first heard this line, I was very confused because I didn't understand what that meant. But I think the end is quite simple because the song's tonalities feels like the narrator is daring someone to come and change their identity. And the line before can't be two of one is shape me. And it feels like it's teasing the people who want to change their identity to try to do so, and they can't. And again, the last line, I feel like is very interesting because it had me thinking, because this line means that you can't have two faces in the same body, implying that you can't be two-faced. And I guess that could imply being ingenuine. And again, this song is about someone's journey, and I think at the end of everything, they're talking about their reflections, they're talking about the truths, and they're talking about things that they've had to realize over reflection, and how those reflections turn into important lessons for them to learn on their journey about self-security. And I think when you find yourself in Zen with yourself, in a world where where it's always in chaos, I think that's when you find self-security. And again, we affect the world in ways we don't even know. When you're in peace, maybe when you're more organized, or maybe even when you're more relaxed or healthy, you could change the world in different ways. When you're upset, you might also change the world in a different way too. Maybe when you're happier, you're able to keep a plant alive, or maybe learn a new skill that can help other people, that can not just help yourself, but maybe be able to help others with that new skill, such as, I don't know, sewing or cooking. You know, we might not be able to know how exactly we impact the world, but just know that we are, because we all have meaning within this world. And changing your world into a state of Zen is the first step to finding out about how you are as a person and your place in the world and your own self-security. And finding Zen can be hard, but once you are in that darkness, you can glow as bright as the sun once you've like found yourself and you're able to hold yourself and say that you're ready for the next step. So that being said, that's my analysis for this song, and I don't really have anything else to say, but I do feel like this song had a lot of material to it, and I don't really see people, I really was excited to see like a lot of analysis on this video, not on this video, but on this song, because I do feel like there's so much to talk about when it comes to this song. But, that being said, So, I'm gonna end it here. Thank you for watching this video, and bye now!